morning. My name is Pankaj Agarwal. I am global business leader who have driven cost transformation in global organization in 45 countries. While making this video, I have with me Bhaskar Agarwal, who is doing masters in industrial and operations with specialization in supply chain and manufacturing technology from Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago, US. He will steer the discussion in this video today.
In various videos which you have published on LinkedIn on radical transformation, I saw a lot of positive feedback and people wanted to understand how to drive purchasing excellence. The bigger question is whether can they get double-digit cost reduction on a regular basis? So what's your framework for the material cost reduction and why is it so important for an organization?
To start the purchasing excellence program, there are many things you need to do, like engaging leadership, etc., which I have captured in my previous videos on driving radical transformation. There you can get all inputs on driving transformation from software skill point of view. In this video, I will talk more of the purchasing language and not the management jargons of change management. My today's video will address the framework to drive double-digit material cost reduction. Typically, material cost reduction is roughly 70% of the total cost of most of the businesses. Therefore, the importance of understanding this cost and controlling and reducing the same become very crucial for everyone. Small upside and downside of this cost can totally swing the balance sheet of any organization.
This is so critical. What kind of challenge do people face here and what's your motto?
The challenge in doing so is that you have to get the money out of someone else's pocket, and who happens to be your supplier. Can you ask him to reduce his profit and pass on that money to you? Can you squeeze him completely so that his business is not viable anymore? Sometimes when you are looking for reducing cost, your supplier comes to you for price increase. As inflation is increasing, commodity prices are swinging left and right. Now migrant laborers are not easily available, and it will be having an impact on the cost of labor. What should we really do to reduce material cost? Over the years of working across the globe on cost reduction in over 1,000 plants in 45 countries, in various industries like automotive, energy, airlines, infrastructure, and telecom, I have realized that there is always some opportunity for cost reduction. You need to have those eyes and experience to look for it. Basis this knowledge, I developed one motto which I use it everywhere. My motto is purchasing excellence is all about discovering variation and leveraging it. I repeat, purchasing excellence is all about discovering variation and leveraging it. This has worked for me for years, and the key is to find out these variations.
This sounds very interesting. How do you figure out those areas of variation and what are some ways to tackle it successfully?
You would wonder where variation is, where we can find out. However, in my opinion, variation is everywhere. Whether it's different suppliers, different commodities, different parts, different designs, different material, different specifications, different assemblies, different child parts, different team members in your team, different manufacturing processes at suppliers, different machines, different tools, different taxes and duties, and of course different countries and currencies. These are some of them, but if you look around you, you will find variation everywhere. You need eyes to find out and understand about them. These are some of them. You need to ask yourself, what is this variation? How much is this variation? And bigger question is why you have this variation. Once you start to find out these answers, you will see the light in the tunnel to get your double digit savings. Don't you think if there is so much of variation around you, it will definitely have some impact on the overall cost? A lot of time we assume that world is constant and what we know or what cost we have got is the best. That's the major hurdle in reducing cost. I've met many purchasing heads and they feel pride in saying that no one can reduce this material cost further. This is ridiculous thinking. I'm not underestimating their achievements, but I always believe that there must be another or better way or approach to further optimize it. With that intention, if you approach material cost or any other cost, there are higher chances for success.
This looks like an ocean full of opportunities to me. How do you start this journey? I'm sure before you even start this journey, having the right team of people must play an important role to drive it. How do you ensure the group has the right mindset to get this work done?
The first important pillar for me is the team, because without them nothing will work. Purchasing team plays a very important role. Ask yourself, what's their job? What kind of structure do you have? If you look at the structure of a soccer team, the job of the team is to play the match and win it. And there are other people and coach around them who support them for analytics, for learning new techniques, take care of health, etc. In your organization, is there any support structure for your buyer or supply chain engineer, as they are totally buried in daily material management and dosing daily fires? Do you think they can spend time in doing analytics, research, etc.? In my opinion, no way. If they can get the material on time to feed the line, they will be more than happy. First important thing is to restructure your team and allocate some dedicated people around your main buyers who can do business analytics for them. And also you need to have some specialists in these areas. For example, global sourcing, APQP, logistics, commodities, dedicated cost reduction and analysis professionals, etc., who can help the core team in finding out opportunities and then driving execution. Without such kind of support, this kind of cost reduction is not possible. I'm not saying that you create army of people, but definitely you need some very sharp structure around your core team. Apart from people, what kind of skill set have you given to your team? Do they know finance? Do they have understanding of lean or operation excellence? Do they understand how OEE can be calculated and improved? Do they have exposure to different manufacturing technologies and industry 4.0? Or they are just pure commercial people who do Excel file engineering while sitting on their desk all day? Or do negotiation by crushing the supplier? You might find this very familiar, and if this is the case, then there is a huge homework for you to do it in your organization. One question I would like to ask you: how often your purchasing team visits suppliers? You will be shocked with an answer. I know people who are at a senior level who visited supplier maybe 2 years back or 6 months back. These kind of people definitely cannot help you much. If you are not visiting supplier, then you definitely are the Excel master, and this cannot drive you double-digit saving at all. Here I always follow Japanese 4G motto. First is Gemba, go to the actual workplace. Gembutsu, focus on the piece of equipment or the product or a process. Genjitsu, find out facts around you. Genchi, Gembutsu, look for opportunities for improvement and saving. And this philosophy really works for any kind of cost reduction. In addition to visiting supplier, one important thing I would like to ask is how many times or how many time do you spend with engineers and R&D team of your organization to discuss material cost reduction, its approaches and strategies, as design play a very important role in reducing material cost. Typically, purchase and R&D are two shores of a river, and their interaction level is sometimes can be a very big challenge. If you are expecting saving will come just by negotiation, then you are fooling yourself big time. You might be wondering why I am asking for so many things. One thing you must realize that money doesn't come so easily. Also, if you're talking about 10% material cost reduction, then this kind of investment is peanuts. So don't shy away from investing this.
This is a very comprehensive view on the role of the team. You talked about variation going to the shop floor and doing business analytics. So what areas do you explore to find the right data to analyze to provide a better view of how the company is performing?
Once you have the analytics team, there is a need for a lot of analytics to find out elements of variation, what I discussed before. This data is not readily available. It might take a lot of time to get to this analytics. I would say it's not an ongoing, it's a ongoing process. One analytics will lead to another. There is no ready-made recipe that will give you all answers. Some of the data will be available in your SAP or your Excel file, which is buried in your individual computers, or inside lot of dusty files lying in some corner of your office for many years. But most of the data will be at your supplier, where you have not visited for months and years. So you might have to move out of your chair and visit the suppliers. I'm sounding harsh, but this is needed for sure. It will be a big challenge to visit all suppliers and collect relevant data. You will find a lot of challenges and suppliers may not allow you to collect data. Therefore, you have to do it smartly, because they also know that this data you will use against them only sooner or later. You have to collect data for every supplier, every part, every process, every logistic route. Of course, you can prioritize them. However, it will be a massive exercise and will take its own time. However, you must start from somewhere today. Once you start to do this analysis, you will start to unfold opportunities one after the other. It's like unfolding the layers of onion one after the other. It's an amazing exercise and will give you a lot of learning and benefits. Most of you will be familiar with price arbitrage analysis to compare similar parts from different supplier, and you see variation. You need to figure it out why this price arbitrage is coming from. Is it because of process, technology, design, or simple negotiation, etc.? And this can throw a lot of ideas which can help in reducing cost. But the bigger opportunity is where there is no arbitrage. Most people stop working on those parts where there is no arbitrage. As I said, you need to find variation. If you don't find on the surface, then dig deeper and find it. One important analysis you have to do is to study different designs, different material of the parts, assembly and their child parts. Compare it with your own parts and with the competition. This will open a Pandora box of opportunities for cost reduction. Typically, material cost has following elements, and I'm using a typical automotive supply chain cost for this video for simplicity. Majority of the cost, around 50%, is of commodities, for example steel, aluminium, plastic, copper, etc., which is being used by your supplier for making the parts for you. Second area of the cost is the conversion cost, which include manufacturing cost, labor cost, energy cost. Third is logistics and inventory cost. Fourth is taxes and duties. Fifth is overhead and profits which you give to your suppliers. This cost structure and their percentage will be different in different type of parts. There is no fixed ratio of these costs typically.
This kind of analysis is a very big task and can keep the organization busy for a long time. After understanding broadly the overall cost structure, I'm sure raw material and commodities stand out to be the most important elements for the overall cost. How do you address them?
Let's start our discussion on commodities, which is roughly 40 to 50% of the total material cost. The irony here is that this is the biggest element of cost, and this is mainly driven by macroeconomic factors and global indices, for example LME, sales circular, crude data, etc. This include steel, aluminium, plastic, coke, zinc, nickel, tire chemicals, etc., and many others. Typically, commodities are traded with market forces, but there are opportunities in reducing commodity prices beyond these indices as well. There are various parts of the cost other than indices, for example premium, logistic cost, base price, etc. There are many elements which can be looked into. Also, you can check in which form are you getting them. For example, cut sheet or coil or liquid form or solid form. Once you start to look at it, you will start to see huge variation in prices. Is your raw material coming from virgin material or through a scrap route? This will make a difference. Are you buying from tier 1 mill or tier 2 or trader? Further you go away from the mill, prices start to go up. What's your inventory and payment terms? They can also have a lot of influence on your prices. If you're a global company, are you considering prices across the globe? Are you consolidating all the commodity across the globe? Who's negotiating these prices? Europe team or Indian team? Because Europe teams typically look at the prices references in Europe, which is much higher than in India. Therefore, engage the teams in India as well if you really want the best prices for commodities. Also, are you consolidating the commodities buying, or all your suppliers do of their own? If you have the ability to do consolidation, then it can give you better prices and also have better control on the price and the quality as well. There are few OEMs in India who are able to do it, but others either don't want to do it or don't have the ability to do it. Many suppliers struggle to get good prices from the mill, and also their payment terms and inventory norms are not very good for the total material cost. Sometimes they have to buy from retail market, which is definitely increases the cost, especially if you're buying special type of commodities. For example, steel for a particular grade, then it may not be available everywhere, and this can attract higher prices. For example, aluminium, instead of buying from Middle East, can you look for other countries to get some FTA benefits or develop somewhere in India also? As I said, look around everywhere. It takes time, but you must look for alternate sources. Another question I have for you is, how do you negotiate the commodity prices with the mills? Or you just follow circular prices or follow some big OEM numbers to set the price? Do you have any cost model for commodities? Do you know how they are trending? Can you forecast their cost for next quarters? What kind of mechanism do you use? Do you know their global demand and supply situations? Do you know what your peers in the industry are doing? This kind of information will be very, very helpful for your negotiations and reducing cost. Are your raw material suppliers just supplying material, or do you think they can do some value addition also? Can they be your design partners, or can they do some forward integration also for you? You need to evaluate these aspects for your businesses. Don't just do vanilla purchasing, as it doesn't help much.
After buying the raw material, it's pertinent that you use it wisely. How do you ensure better material utilization and yield improvement?
Once you buy the material, it's very critical that the material is utilized fully without much of waste. In most cases, the yield level of the material is ranging from 60 to 70%, and the rest is wasted or recycled. However, it's a big loss. We spend a lot of energy in negotiating the prices of commodities, but very less effort is put on reducing the waste. In sheet metal, you will find a lot of scrap, same in the case of the forging. Also in casting, you will have a lot of runners and risers, which could be around 40% of your total weight, which need to be recycled, but it costs you to melt it again, and some is definitely wasted, which is called melting losses, which can range between 5 to 10% depending on your negotiations and the process your supplier is following. Who in your organization working on yield improvement? Does the design team work on it to build into design, or your purchasing team takes care of it during negotiations? Have you seen those sheet metal blanks at your supplier end? Sometimes you'll be amazed that even though your calculation might have some yield number, but I'm sure supplier would have already done some improvement. Do you know that? This is the area which can give you immediate benefits. Do you know how much variation in the thickness of steel you are buying? I leave this question with you. You need to figure it out and find out what is the relevance of this. Once you know how much yield is and how much is the scrap, What's your strategy to leverage scrap? As I said earlier, that 30 to 40% material is either scrapped or recycled. And the scrap is the most neglected element of the costing, and it's not controlled by any OEM. We all believe that whatever rates we are getting in the market for selling scrap are good enough. However, this is again a mental block. Have you ever thought of consolidating the scrap either in selling or buying? A lot of suppliers would be selling scrap, and many of the other suppliers who are doing casting, some may be making steel or aluminium, who may be buying scrap. Who control the price of the scrap? What level of transparency you have in these costs? Have you ever tried to explore to leverage this? Have you explored scrap sources across the country and outside as well? Is there any person in your organization who's dedicated for management of scrap? I'll talk of painting and coating costs now. I'll discuss only the consumption of the chemicals here and not the process cost. How do you pay the cost of painting and coating? There are different methods people use. Some use the consumption by kilo of material being coated or painted. Some use surface area. This can become very crucial when you have big parts, where per kilo calculation may not yield good result. How much is the addition of the paint and how much is wasted? Typically, wastage of paint can range from 60 to 70%. You need to explore different processes which can reduce the paint consumption.
After raw material cost, manufacturing cost is the biggest element of the purchase part. What all do you think can be done to leverage in this area? What are the strategies you have followed?
In any material, roughly 60% is the raw material cost and 40% is the conversion. And this is the gold mine. This ratio can vary 10% up and down depending on the type of material and the part. However, this part of the cost is something which people can do a lot on calculations and can do accurate assessment to find out what is the real cost. But there are very few purchasers who can tell you what should be this cost. That's where the opportunity lies. A lot of time we benchmark the final cost between suppliers in India and abroad. But how many times people benchmark the processes which are being used by different suppliers? Every supplier is different, and so as their processes, and therefore this cost also has to be very different. Do you see any opportunity here? Another important thing which you need to also understand is how much of the value addition your supplier is doing in-house. I've seen a lot of bearing manufacturers, either small bearing or very mega bearings, have very high level of input material cost, as they have offloaded a lot of processes to supplier in times when automation level was very low and people used to offload to save people cost. Roughly their input cost is 70 to 80%. Then how much cost reduction can you demand from them, as they have very less control in their own four walls? Also, you will see in balance sheet of suppliers that the people cost is increasing by 1 percentage point every year. And as you are also aware that normal wage increase per year is 10% roughly in India. So how much do you balance it out with any productivity improvement? Does your supplier knows their ROS of their equipment or plant, as this has a direct relationship to the price reduction they might give to you? How are they increasing their ROS? ROS means return on capital employed. In high capex processes like casting, forging, etc., OE plays a very, very important role, and it has a direct impact on the ROS. You might like to work on de-skilling the processes and automation. By small automation and robotization, you can improve overall ROS and output, and OE can substantially be increased. If your manpower is working on a 5 crore forging hammer, he cannot give you more than 50 to 60% OEE, as the environment is not suitable for such output. Also, there will be breaks in between. Therefore, a small robot can make the machine run for 24/7, and your OE can become very, very high. So as your ROS. You need to evaluate where all robotization can be done, so that you are able to mitigate the impact of manpower cost increase and also improve ROS substantially. Have you ever done benchmarking of manufacturing process used in India and outside India? This can give you a lot of insight on how to improve manufacturing efficiency. Also, you can benchmark between Europe and Asia as well, as European processes are capital heavy processes. However, in Asia, there are small automation which can give you better manufacturing cost. Also look at labor rates across the globe and also the total manufacturing costs in those countries and pick up the places to get the best cost. What kind of efforts are you putting in reducing cycle time of the processes, which has direct impact on the cost of the part? Now the biggest challenges in improving the manufacturing cost at supplier is that what kind of competency and resources are missing in your purchasing team. And they are more or less dependent on supplier himself, which is a showstopper. There is hardly any concerted effort by any purchaser team to work on these elements in a structured way. Therefore, you lose this opportunity completely. Only tool purchaser has is to negotiate, which is not a very sustainable model. Another aspect you need to look at with the supplier is what manufacturing technology upgradation he is doing, or is just following the same old manufacturing process. Who in your team working with the supplier to drive this? This is a totally grey area where the effort are practically nil. Are you working on lean with the suppliers, or they themselves working on it? Have you defined some targets there? What kind of operation excellence program your suppliers are driving? How often do you really validate the process after the APQP submission? I have realized that cycle time of the process are hardly revisited once the part is developed, and sometime when you go to supplier, you see all those surprises.
During my time in college, I studied a lot of energy cost reduction and did a couple of energy audits. Do you see any opportunity to optimize energy costs to help reduce your overall material costs from suppliers?
Energy, yes, it does play a role. I have many questions for the audience here. Does energy cost play a role in your manufacturing cost of your suppliers? How much and how much you can reduce? What all you have done so far? Have you ever explored renewable energy? Typically, there are few processes which consume huge energy. For example, casting, forging, welding, etc. You might start doing third-party energy audits with suppliers to identify opportunities for savings. Also look at opportunities for promoting renewable energy, which can drive benefits. However, now as government is privatizing power generation and transmission, this will also reduce energy cost. Also, you can evaluate what kind of fuel they are using for their furnaces, etc. There is a lot of variation here. What is the electricity availability from the grid and how much generator set they run and what's in your costing? All these questions and area can give you benefits in reducing energy cost.
How important is the design improvements done by the suppliers in cost reduction, and how do you drive it?
Apart from driving the manufacturing efficiency at the supplier, you must work with the suppliers on design improvements. Typically, OEM asks for 3 to 5% year-over-year design-related improvements across the globe. In India, this is a very weak area for two reasons. One is that suppliers don't have the adequate design competency, and secondly, OEMs also hesitate to make any design changes. You definitely need to work with suppliers on design-related ideas and drive these kind of targets with them so that there is some movement here as well. I have seen in varied industries that suppliers have a lot of suggestions related to design as they work with multiple OEMs, and this is the chance for you to also get some inputs and learning from your competitors as well. This is a black box and must be explored and will give you good results. Some OEMs have a tendency to just shoot a mail to suppliers and expecting that they will send all those ideas by email. This is a no-go. Have you done some design improvement workshop with the supplier in past? Take your design team and your buyers to supplier premises and run design and process improvement workshop. You will be amazed to see ideas generated through these activities. And suppliers have a tendency to give you more design related ideas as they don't lose anything. and it gives benefit to the OEM as well. So it's a win-win for both the parties. Feed those ideas to your engineering and design team and leverage the saving. One thing you should know that the material cost reduction is not only responsibility of purchasing team. Engineering plays a very, very important role here. However, the whole drive of cost reduction must be driven by purchasing team, and the respective departments must participate actively to drive down material cost.
After manufacturing, logistics plays an important role on the overall supply chain. What are the cost-saving opportunities here in the logistics area?
How much can you reduce cost in logistics? Is it in your control? How much role it plays in your whole supply chain? Logistics including inbound, outbound, packaging and warehousing cost. It includes both inland and sea and air freight. Do you have expertise or experts to handle this area? You could use hub and spoke strategy with suppliers to minimize capital spend and maximize JIT across the plants. This can be used also for your outbound logistics as well. You can work on utilization of trucks, increasing capacity of the same truck, redesign packaging, do milk runs, 3PL logistics, etc., which can give consistent saving year over year. You can also explore backhaul logistics to utilize the trucks for return load. Rerouting and monitoring of routes and kilometers for your trucks for outbound and inbound can also give you a lot of benefits. A lot of work can be done on packaging as well, but typically this expertise is missing in many companies. Sea freight is one very big technical area, and understanding on the operating model of this type of transport is very essential to save some money. There is a huge potential in this, but it needs thorough understanding of the operating model of sea freight operators. Warehousing plays a very important part of your material cost, especially when you have a lot of imported material. This level of inventory you are keeping, what type of lead time you have in your value stream, all this plays an important role in defining the warehousing cost.
With so many fluctuations in demand and the uncertainty in the supply chain, how do you optimize inventory management and what's its impact on the overall material cost?
How crucial is inventory in your business? What level of inventories do you need now? Is it always beneficial to reduce inventory? These are some of the questions every purchaser asks. However, the key at this point of time when the whole logistics is choked, the first priority is to protect your supply chain, as there is so many uncertainties in getting the material, as sometimes the ports are blocked or the road transport is not moving at the same speed as earlier. So you might need to keep some buffer, but as the things start to be normal, you can revise your inventory norms.
As the material is coming from different countries and there are so many taxes and duties, how do you optimize this? In addition to this, how do you leverage macroeconomic factors in the optimizing material cost?
Can you leverage taxes and duties while importing? How and where? There is a lot of opportunity here. There are many countries where there is a FTA, free trade agreement with India. For example, Japan, Malaysia, etc. One need to understand the complete picture of products and countries. Also, you need to think in what form you get the material. If you buy the steel, then you pay heavy duties. But if you buy some semi-finished items, then duties are lesser. In energy sector, there are heavy duties on castings, which is totally unavoidable. Even if you are buying any other assembly which has casting in it, then they put extra duty on the complete assembly also. To understand this, you might need to engage your financial experts to rationalize this. Also, you might know the duties for the components you are buying in your plants. But how about the components your suppliers are buying? What classification do they use when they buy them? All those things can make a lot of difference. Now, in addition to tax and duty, there are a lot of macroeconomic levers which you can use in optimizing your material cost. There are two main drivers here. One, leveraging tax benefits from different countries, as I explained earlier, like Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. And also leveraging energy and commodity cost. For example, Himachal Pradesh in India has lower energy cost, and you can use it for making forging there and then do machining in Delhi or somewhere else. Or leveraging low cost energy and iron ore in Yunnan province in China. In wind energy, there is a heavy duties on casting. Therefore, why not develop Indian sources and reduce cost dramatically? It might need little investment, but returns are very, very high. There are many other areas where we are not leveraging Indian companies. Many heavy engineering manufacturing is being done in India, but mainly assembly and lot of parts are imported, which increases the lead time and cost of the overall part. There are big industrial houses in India and we are not leveraging them enough. There is a huge cost reduction potential here. One just need to open their eyes and do it. Other area which is very, very important is machine building. In India, this is not a very good situation. Most of the companies buy complete machinery from outside India, which increases the capex and in turn impact your material cost. Some companies have started to buy only technology items of the machines from outside India and doing the rest of the machine assembly in India, thereby reducing cost by 30 to 50% of the total machine. These things need to be explored. Sometimes you may not be able to give very stable volumes to your supplier here, but if you are a part of the global organization, then why not develop suppliers in India for exports so that their overall capacity is properly utilized and in turn give you lot of cost reduction. I'm talking about 15 to 20% reduction in heavy engineering. It is also possible in some cases to do 30 to 50% also.
Looking at so many diverse global factors, I would like to know what's your view of global sourcing? How do you build on these global factors in your global sourcing strategy? What's your take on that?
I use localization instead of globalization. What I mean by localization is to choose what is best available in any part of the world, with the very clear intention that at the end you have to bring down the cost in India better than that and also the technology. The one big challenge is to have knowledge of global sources. How do you scout them? How do you assess them? There is always question and debate whether we should have an office in China or not. How to manage sitting in India? Many OEMs started it, but it didn't work so effectively in some cases. One big mistake people do is just to use global sources to get the best prices and then continue to buy from them along with Indian suppliers. How many times have you figured it out, the different manufacturing technologies, different cost, different sources of parts, child parts and raw material which were used by global sources, and how can you leverage them in India? Also utilize this information to negotiate better with Indian suppliers. This kind of knowledge can give you a lot of new manufacturing technology inputs which can help supplier to implement so that their cost goes down and then in turn help you to reduce the prices. You can also utilize the outside supplier for flexibility in capacity and reducing the exposure of capital investment in Indian companies. You can also benchmark child part from global supplier to Indian and in some cases the other way. This can help you to reduce cost in Indian companies and also from your global supplier as well. Other area which you must explore is localization, a part of the globalization drive. This is one lever which will give you heavily on cost reduction, but using the best process and the cost, get the best out of the best. Sometimes you might need to do localization which may not give you huge saving, but it can make your supply chain more agile and reduce inventory and lead time. This can help you in overall reducing your working capital and flexibility to your operations in a big way, which can give lot of saving than just material cost. Another area which is very, very crucial in the overall material cost reduction is having alternate suppliers. For every part and part family, develop a new supplier in any part of the world, which can give you best of the cost, new processes and the new design. This will fuel your learning and also will create a huge benchmark for you and your current suppliers. Apart from localization, you might also need to revisit your processes inside your purchasing department. Like in the beginning, I talked about having purchasing team, having some dedicated resources to support your purchasing team. But what I realize is that a lot of purchasing people are spending a lot of time in paperwork. In your total buying spend, there are a lot of content of indirect material, which is low in terms of dollar and rupee value, but extremely high on complexity and number of parts. This consumes a lot of energy of the people. Also, the activities like making purchase orders and other documentation activities, which keep consuming the time of buyers and supply chain engineers. These processes can be offloaded so that your team is focused on driving meaningful activities and your return of investment become high. I've seen that buyers and supply chain engineers spend 50 to 70% time in documentation activities and not at Gemba. This change can make a dramatic change in the way you are managing the purchasing and supply chain.
You might do all of this, but at the end of the day, money will only come when you sit on the negotiation table. This becomes the most crucial step of the whole journey. You might save a lot of money with the suppliers, but whether it will reflect on the purchase order or not is the test. So what's your secret to manage a successful negotiation?
Negotiation. That's the most important and the most toughest thing in any purchasing activity. Sometimes or many times, buyer feel that he or she has upper hand and can ask for price reduction from any supplier. And people tend to do wrestling style fight to negotiate. It actually doesn't work. You might win small battles, but you will lose the war if you do this way again and again. At the end, negotiation has to be win-win game, where both you and your supplier get something, and he's ready to do business with you in a sustainable manner year over year. One thing you should also understand is that you need this saving every year. So don't crush them completely and they go out of business. Before you start your negotiation, you need to do some of these preparations. For example, creating cost model for each category and set targets with respect to overheads, financial costs, depreciation, capital productivity, and work for it. Utilize all these data and information which you can gather in your analytics to create this kind of cost model. Other area which you need to be ready with is the supplier clean sheet costing. Basis all the information of the manufacturing process, raw material cost and energy, etc. Create a clean sheet costing so that you have full understanding of every element of the cost, and this can help you to reduce cost in certain area right away, and in many cases make the roadmap with the supplier to reduce their cost. Utilize this data of cost model and clean sheet costing in negotiation. This will be very, very helpful. What worked for me is to be able to provide the positive pressure in the system. All the things which I talked in the video so far can greatly help you to do your negotiation better. When you sit with those data, analytics, benchmark and improvement, then you would be able to do negotiation in a much, much better manner and in a meaningful manner. Negotiation is like a chess game. Use your brain and strategies and not your position and physical power or your loud voice to bulldoze your supplier. When you're interacting with the supplier, does he feel that you're adding any value? A lot of time people try to get the volume discount, which is a very legitimate thing. But my question is, how much should you get? Do you have those calculations? But on the other side, the challenge is when the volume goes down, do you pass on increase of cost? I'm sure no one does, neither me. Also, one important thing you should understand, that the power of negotiation of the purchasing team of your supplier may not be as good as OEM or a big company. Therefore, their cost may be higher. So you might need to challenge the supplier to improve their own purchasing efficiency, as what you will be paying to them is the sum total of all inefficiency what they have in their business, which you should avoid. The bottom line is that if you want to be successful in your negotiation, you must be fully prepared, as 90% of the success depends on the preparation and 10% on your negotiation skills and supply chain demand equation. One important aspect is how many single source suppliers you have. Depending on that number, you might not be able to get much of cost reduction. Sometimes higher technology item and a single source is a big deterrent in cost reduction. Also, capacity can be another big driver for cost increase or reduction. Do you have adequate capacity available for your volumes? In many cases, I have seen that though you might have multiple suppliers, but due to capacity gaps, you might have to pay premium if you didn't plan your capacity well in time. In some cases, I have bought personally material like in cash and carry mode. In negotiation, one very big showstopper is old petty issues lingering on for a long time with your suppliers. And supplier will keep bringing them again and again. During negotiation, he will always bring those issues, and to save penny, you will lose big amounts in your negotiation. So my recommendation is clear those petty issues before you go for negotiations. How many rounds of negotiation you typically do? Are you in a hurry? Sometimes people get overexcited, close the negotiation because they didn't plan it right on time, and the supplier may take you for ride if you lose the time window. Also, utilize your team for negotiation, because I've seen many times the senior management tend to negotiate directly, and that can kill it, because after them there is no escalation or rounds possible. So whatever they negotiate is the final number. Let your team do some good groundwork. Also, if they have done good, then let them close it. You as a head of purchase don't always have to be part of all negotiation and close all of them. When my buyer does the negotiation, I typically don't override him, especially in front of supplier. Sometimes senior members ridicule or cut their own people in front of the supplier, assuming that they'll be able to do better with the supplier. But trust me, it goes in the reverse direction. And next time your buyer will never fight for it. During negotiation, can you make your supplier realize what's in for him in this negotiation? Or it's just a win for you and nothing for him? That articulation is very important. What kind of body language you and your team having during negotiation? Where do you negotiation is also important. Sometimes some buyer go to supplier plant to do negotiation, and trust me, it never works. Normally you do this when there is a distress or a blackmail by supplier. I have done that with some of the Chinese supplier during crisis. Only thing you negotiate there is how do you reduce your losses. You definitely cannot win those negotiations. Don't always think that all negotiation will be successful. My bigger question is for you to define what's the success in a particular negotiation, what you're trying to achieve. It can't be always cost reduction. It can be capacity building or a new part development as well, and cost is one part. Or it could be just cost avoidance also, where you can avoid any inflation pass over to supplier. So be very clear what you want to achieve in a particular negotiation. And one very important thing, don't take it personally either way. In case you are not able to convince the supplier to reduce the cost, then don't be vindictive. This is a part of the game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Don't take it to the heart and avoid egos. After negotiation, recognize your team for good work, and in case of not so much of success, don't blame them. Remind yourself you are also part of that negotiation. So the onus of failure and success is also on you. Important thing is, after negotiations are done, reflect back what went right, what could have been done better. Some face-to-face negotiations are not always possible, and sometimes we don't want to do it. That's where e-sourcing can play an important role for you. Did you know how to organize e-sourcing? Have you ever done it before? Can it change the game for you? Before I share the benefit, let me explain what is e-sourcing. E-sourcing is an electronic portal where you publish the parts which you want to source, and many of the suppliers will bid for it, and depending on their bids they will be ranked number 1, 2 or 3, and basis that you allocate the share of business. Many low technology item like fasteners, bearing, castings can be e-sourced and could reduce 10 to 15% cost. In global organization, who have footprint across the globe utilize this invariably to drive year-over-year cost reduction, as sometimes it's very difficult and impossible to engage so many suppliers across the globe in person every year. There are some pitfalls of this, as suppliers don't have any commitment for you, as every year you might change their share of business. Especially in high capex environment, that can be detrimental, as some supplier may lose huge money and capacities. Now, after have you done your negotiation, please amend your purchase order in time and from the right effective date. And don't forget to celebrate the success. These were my 2 bits for the audience for driving purchasing excellence. I try to give you some thought process and you can build over it further. Thanks for your patient listening, and I'm sure these inputs will help you explore more cost saving opportunities in your domain. In case you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me on LinkedIn. I would like to thank Bhaskar for steering this session. Thank you so much again, and have a great day. Good morning. My name is Pankaj Agarwal. I am global business leader who have driven cost transformation